Thank you. So apologies today. I haven't received any apologies apart from Tyrone is joining us online. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that, please? Ruben and Kathy. All those in favour? Aye. Thank you.
Aye.
Cheers. Okay.
So I gather that I'm probably quite loud.
You had a conflict of interest in that.
Yes. Do you have a camera? Are you okay broadcasting yourself up, or is it not working today?
No problem at all. Am I there?
No.
No.
I think it's probably at your end that I'm being blocked because my camera's on.
We will work on that one. Thank you for that, Tyrone. Okay, so we're starting up with our open forum and welcoming Suki Thompson to the table. Thank you for coming today. Who's representing the Garden of Tāne Reserve Committee. Come on up.
Yeah, friend.
Hi, Brent. Thanks for coming along. Good to see you.
Now, I'm not using this because I understand it's not working today. So,
Right there.
and maybe if I can just see my slides at the same time, I'll just stand up.
Yes,
That's
whatever
probably
works.
easier. Right. Well, thank you very much for having us along today. I think you all know me. I'm Suki Thompson. I'm here today in my role as chair of the Garden of Tāne Reserve Committee, and I'd like to introduce Bryn Thompson, no relation, but a member of our committee who's along to support today. So we're here to talk about our 3-year plan going forward, and what I'd like to do is just introduce the garden, a little bit of background, and then talk about the plan. So for those of you who don't know, the Garden of Tāne is down here at the south end of Akaroa. Looking up a little closer, you'll see it's entirely forest covered and crisscrossed by an absolute maze of tracks linking together Beach Road with the Anuku Road, which goes past the health centre and then on out to the marae. Our reserve committee, we've got 8 people on now. We bring a really broad range of business, social and practical skills, and the plan has been put together by all of us over the last year, walking around thinking about what we need to do next. So we have got a reserve management plan. The plan was adopted in 2010. We've been going as a committee since 2012. The garden was in a shocking state when we started. We developed a plan on how to systematically upgrade it. We made submissions to the TYP in 2013 and the 2015 LPT. We were granted funding. We have now spent approximately $320,000 and we have got that infrastructure up to snuff. And I want to really underline that it's the committee that has driven that upgrade. We have worked out each of the individual projects within our plan. We have arranged the contractors. We have specified the work and we monitored the work as it's taken place. The council capital projects manager has been really helpful, but he's written out purchase orders and he's paid the bills. And with the bigger projects, he's been there to add some help and guidance. But if we go on to the next one, just to give you an idea of some of the things we've done, just the entrance, a whole list of things there, taking it from tired, tatty, puddles, muddy, broken gates, nothing welcoming you to what it is today. Tracks, every track, you can now walk in your street shoes as opposed to the muddy mess that they were all in. Everything has been done using local materials by local people, so we've really kept the feel of the place. I'd really like to thank Bren and his company Metalcraft Engineering, who have created these wonderful old heritage benches for us from the one that remained in Akaroa, created the pattern, and now we have about 10 of them, and Bren's donated quite a few of those. And so we've capped off all these achievements last year by putting in our carving of Tāne and our nature play area, bringing Maori elements into the garden, using local carver Simon Rogers, and Tāne funded entirely through a community public appeal, not by the council. So now the garden's really well used by a whole range of different people, and for events, has really become part of the Akaroa scene. And just finally, our most recent project, popping in a tree to celebrate the coronation of King Charles with the school, and a recent working bee done with Kerry's team from Community Parks, who supplied the plants to deal with an issue we've had with mountain bikers making cut-through tracks. And I'd just really like to thank Kerry and the Community Parks team. It's been a game changer having them locally based and coming in to support us all the time. So that's been fantastic. So moving on now to our 3-year plan. It continues to implement our reserve management plan. What we want to do now is we want to maintain the infrastructure that we've created, and we want to put a focus onto the forest now and redeveloping some of the forest. We've consulted with Kerry, with Paul Devlin, with Stephen Gray, and Steffi's been involved as well. We have incorporated the feedback from staff into the plan that we have circulated to you. And the whole thing is being funded by a bring forward of 10K per annum from a lump of funding that already sits in the LPT and LPTP in 2030, and Stephen Gray has been arranging that for us. So I'll go through now the 6 goals in our plan. We have circulated that to you, and I'll have to whip through these slides. But first of all, we really want to have scheduled maintenance so that we have proactive rather than reactive maintenance. And Kerry's team's been spending a lot of time chasing around in there, dealing with trees that have fallen on tracks, dealing with blocked drains after storms. If drains are blocked, you get your tracks washed out, that sort of thing. So we want to stop that and get in there proactively. And that is both with the community parks team and with arborist work, so that we don't have so many trees falling on tracks. And then we see ourselves as volunteers where we can come in, we can assist with weed control, and we can run around before storms have predicted and clean out drains in advance. Secondly, I talked about this at the induction day, really important to get our assets into the council asset register to drive the renewal program, both the checking and the financials. And we want that done in coordination with us so that we get it put in so it's usable information and complete. But most important, this 3rd goal, revitalizing the forest. Trees are reaching their natural lifespan. We're seeing a lot of tree damage after storms. We want to develop key areas, therefore, to front foot again before they start falling over, to deal with them and replant inappropriate species. That will improve public safety, enable us to tap into that capital funding and use capital rather than operational to do the work. So that's the plan. Just a little bit more on that. If you have a look here, we've identified 4 areas that we think we can deal with over the next 3 years. We can't do it all. This will be a 10-year program, but we're talking about 3 here. Before we go into each area, we would do more detailed plans with the Botanic Garden staff, and Paul's organising for Wolfgang Bopp to come over and talk to us about that. The principal cost will be that arborist work, where we put the arborists through first, and then we use volunteers to do the planting. So that's where we'll come into it. Just a couple of areas to start with. Very straightforward, planting along the Anuku Road, more complex, dealing with a lot of dead and dying oaks, just a bit further back in to the park. Moving on to our 4th goal, we want to see those adjacent road reserves worked on. A lot of work's been done already. These are some old issues that have been resolved, but just moving on, the Anuku Road verge, Kerry can attest to this. We're still getting a lot of bad drainage, uncontrolled drainage coming through the park, causing recent slips. And then down at the bottom of the park, we're the problem. We drain down onto the cliffs. They're eroding down onto the road, and we've got weed species that are blocking the views out. So we see 2 real big projects there coordinating with roading to improve our common boundaries. Fire prevention, fire resilience, keeping that at front of mind in everything we do is our 5th goal. And finally, we want to start reinstating some of the heritage features. Nigel, particularly keen on that one. So we've got that as our 6th goal. So finally, what are we seeking from you? We're looking for your endorsement of our plan, and particularly through your submission to the long-term plan. We're asking you to support that 10K bring forward. In your plan, we're asking you to support community parks, and Kerry's just told me we need to do some spreadsheet work together later this week, so we will do that. And to support the tree people, who are the arborists who have been working in the Garden of Tāne with us and have put forward a very generous proposal to hold their prices for 3 years at a discounted rate, provided they can get an agreement from the council that they will be used to do the regular arborist checks and the follow-up work. And they've also offered to do pro bono checking before the Lumiere event. So a very generous deal being offered by the tree people. And finally, we really hope you will come for a visit to the garden when you're in Akaroa in October. Your predecessor community board came in 2015 and supported our very successful submission to the 2015 LTP, which enabled us to carry out all this infrastructure work. So I hope I haven't talked for too long, and we've got time for some questions and discussions.
I do. Any questions, I'm sure.
I just want to congratulate you and the team, and I think it's a real benchmark for other reserve RMCs. I think it's really engaging with the community and really dealing with the big issues too.
Thanks, Nigel.
Other questions?
Everything was answered.
So just for clearly, are we talking about an increase in your budget?
At this stage, we are not asking for an increase in the budget. I think that 10K per annum, as long as we've got that wiggle room that we seem to have with bring forwards within parks, like the big one will be this first one, Area 2, where the Oaks alongside Anuku Road, and Bryn lives right opposite there and observes firsthand the issues.
Yes, thanks for having us along. So Yes Metalcraft Engineering were also a 20-year resident of Akaroa. I'm still a townie though, apparently. Always will be, yeah, trying to integrate, but they won't let me. I've watched over 20 years the Lighthouse Bay Road and Nuku Road drainage get worse. The amount of water and fluid that comes down off Lighthouse Road and then turns a right-hand corner or just, and then flows through the garden, or flows down to Nuku, then flows through the garden. Those that have visited recently, you'll see the new hospital has no parking. So the ladies, mainly ladies, are parking, and then the ruts are like this, that they have to get out of their cars to go into work, and then they walk out, and it's all driven by water and fluid from Lighthouse Road. So I sort of probably put a challenge out there to you as a community board to work with council, to work with roading, because it is their issue, which then drifts down to a community issue. It's getting worse and worse. The recent floods of about 3-4 weeks ago, so I was a neighbour at the time there, the water's flowing down the road, flowing through, you walk down the tracks and they're all washed out. A lot of hard work is already gone and getting dangerous and then getting worse and worse. So I sort of challenged the board to think about how we can be creative using someone else's money and time, which is further up the chain, but we've got to drive it from, we're only a committee of yours, to help you push and then push it through. But it's visually, you can see it, and we had some people through last week to have a look, but it is just getting worse and worse. There's some really good work done on Elmers Valley Road about 3 years ago. It made all the difference in the world to transfer the water in the right place, down the storm water, out into the sea. This needs to be continued. All it has to be is continued up to Nuku, and then possibly at the top of Nuku and Lighthouse, it needs quite a large one to stop the water going right over the bank and just flooding in. So,
It's good at planning, because it's good to be able to see in my mind's eye when you're talking about
it's a very steep, it just, part of that part and the amount of fluid that does wash down. So, but the hard work, I've supported the community for years, and then Suki dragged me on board this year to help.
Oh, I don't know if I'm dragging.
which is great. So.
I do know that Ben has a question before we wrap up.
Yep. More of a comment than a question, but to thank you, Suki, and your team for your wonderful planning that you do so well. Because it will support the board's triennial plan format that they have, the new, for the reserve committees now, is just slot into that so nicely. And we'll make sure that there's some follow-up on those issues that we've just
Thanks.
Very informative. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you.
As long as it's super quick. you know.
So, quick, Kerry, can I ask Kerry a question?
Oh, it's cross table.
No.
Here's what it is, Nigel.
I know you do a fantastic job and it's great that you're supporting. Are you running out of resources?
We just need to prioritise
Okay.
our staff. Yeah,
Okay.
I think we're okay.
Thank you. Thank
That's
you. for
good.
that. So you are. Okay.
Oh,
I'm writing that down. There we go.
if I can just hand these out, I know you've gone paperless, but sometimes I think you might get lost on your computers. So here's just a summary of what we're asking you to support. So when you come to your LTP submission, you have us in front of mind. And thank you very much indeed. Lovely to see you all.
Thank you very much.
And I hope we can see you for a bit of a walkies
Yeah,
on the
good.
30th of October.
Oh, yeah. But we did come last time just for a brief.
Yeah,
I
you
remember
came.
sitting in the playground.
Very briefly, and I think, was that before we put the nature playground and the Tane carving in?
No, we had the
Just
playground.
after,
It was
yeah,
it was
just
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you do have time to come, we can show you a little bit more of the type of things we're talking about now in terms of drainage and those more pragmatic things.
Yeah.
All right,
Thank you
Thank you
both
very
very
much
much.
indeed.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next, we've got Wendy Everingham. Excuse that, spraying at Udama. Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you for having me at such short notice, and I'm sorry that I'm really croaky. I only have a cold, but anyway, so I'm here today just to highlight that a herbicide spraying program has been suggested at Uramau Reserve. So first I knew about this was a letter that I got in my letterbox on Friday, saying that the committee and the council's regional parks team was starting a spray program, which can start from today and will proceed into October. And the idea is to get rid of old man's beard. So just thought, so why I'm here is first of all as a neighbour to the reserve. And secondly is that I've had a lot to do with weed control on Uramau. I was the community weed manager from 2019 to 2023. And then I actually was on the reserve management committee from 2013 to 2023. So I really know Uramau well. So under the past community management regime, we had a policy for weed removal, and that was no spray, cut and paste only. So spray hasn't been applied to Uramau Reserve since the early 2000s. So it was a deliberate choice of the former Reserve Management Committee not to spray because we're trying to restore the health of the land. So I've got a few reasons here to let you know why we didn't spray. So in our opinion, spraying is just a really quick fix. So when contractors come in and spray, they're really just targeting this. So are you all familiar with old man's beard? Yeah. So it's a creeper. This is what's on top, and the spray will kill that. But underneath are horrendous roots. So if it looks big on top, under the ground, it's just as big. So this was an above ground root. I didn't have an underground one to show you, but I thought this was evidence enough to show you like what's under the ground. So when you come along and spray, it doesn't affect any of this at all. So what happens 2 or 3 years later, this all starts coming back again. And then the council spray people come back again and spray. So you end up in an endless cycle of forking out money to spray the tops of this, and it doesn't solve your problem. The other thing too is spraying kills other things. I bought my little sprayer, you spray like this, it doesn't just target the plant that you're aiming for, it just takes a puff of wind or something not very out of the ordinary, and the spray goes further. So Urumau Reserve used to be a dairy farm. So years ago, there was Coxford grass everywhere. There were introduced worms, there were introduced all sorts of species up there. So the community here for 20 years or more has been actively trying to change that soil biota. And from working up there, when you've got your hands in the dirt, you see that it is actually changing. And if you start spraying this, they call it metsulfuron. Helen did a bit of research. Helen was also on the weed team, Helen Greenfield, I should say. And she's done some research about the herbicide. And yeah, while it's effective at controlling this, it's not, it kills the soil biota. So the wetters and all the spiders and the stuff that's been coming back into the soil since we've been trying to make it a native forest has the potential to be killed as well. The other thing that I found with spraying, one time at Whakaraupo Reserve, the council contractors came in to spray broom and gorse right at the top of the reserve. And we were assured that the contractors knew what they were doing. Well, the contractors half the time don't really know what the natives are. And so they killed out a whole lot of prostate cophi up there. So I fear the same thing will happen at Urumau with the natives that are up there. Other information too, I don't know whether, did you all get a copy of this letter? Yeah. Well, they produced a map on the back of it telling us where the spray areas are going to be. I don't really know how much research went into this, but they have one little exclusion zone here for a tiny planting area, but since 2021, a further 1,200 plants have gone in here, and they're not even on the exclusion zone. And there's heaps of natural regeneration through there. Again, I just feel this project or program is going to create a lot of mess. It's going to overturn 20 years of work that people have been doing. It's not an effective way to get rid of this stuff. So what I'm asking all of you to do is overturn this notice ASAP, because they could come onto the reserve today and start spraying. So as the community board with the new terms of reference, you are the managers of the reserve. You have the power now. You have to say what the policy is in relation to spraying or weed control. Not the reserve committee or the council staff. You have to set the policies. And so I think this letter has exposed a real gap in the new terms of reference. A letter like this shouldn't have gone out before you knew about it. You need to have instructed staff and the committee what your position is in relation to spraying. So I'd like to think you can go back to what the former committee had as a position. And we promoted a more environmentally friendly way of weed control, cutting and pasting. It's quite labour intensive, but when you cut and paste, you get rid of all of this. This stops coming back. So we had an active program pretty much from the bottom of the reserve right through here. We've been taking this stuff right out. I think that's the program that should continue. It's much better for the environment. It's much better for the reserve.
Thank you for explaining that. It gives us a very clear idea. I think Ruben's got a question you'd like to ask.
Yeah, firstly, I just wanted to say thank you, because it's excellent to have prompts as well. It's very useful. And as you said before the meeting, that's not even the biggest. There's bigger up there. Also, the conversation or the information you've shared now echoes, I don't know if all board members received it, but a number of emails that I got over the weekend from really concerned residents about spraying in that reserve. I guess the questions I have for staff are, what can we do to, because there's kind of two parts to this, right? We can stop them, we can potentially also stop the immediate spraying, but also to look at the principle of it for this reserve and potentially others. Yeah, that as a board, we would hear about this before local residents do via a letter, because if this happened on holidays when key people are away, it could all just happen. So I guess it's kind of like the immediate issue and then the principle of it.
Yeah, and a report, I guess. Staff report.
What's that, sorry?
Staff report.
Staff report, so that process
Yeah, well,
that Wendy was talking
I
about,
think
how
we come and
they've received a
explain.
letter, but we are not
Please
necessarily.
explain.
And potentially correspondence to all other reserve committees to say this has happened.
Yeah.
We would expect.
Yeah.
Yes, so what is the staff's understanding of that process? Thank you, sorry, Tyrone.
I just want to just quickly say that like I absolutely support everything Ruben just said. Yeah.
Okay, noted, thank you. Yes, advice on steps, I guess, to look at what we can do about the process of this and potential causing.
Yeah. So from a process, from a public forum, all the board can do, you cannot make a decision because you don't have board to make any decision on. All you can do is ask staff to investigate and follow up, which we're able to do.
Yeah.
What I would like to say though is that the community board isn't in charge of the decisions that get made on the reserve, on those reserves. So the new terms of reference clearly spells that it's a co-management situation between the reserve committee and staff, and it is through that process that they have reached a decision as a reserve committee with staff to do that.
Right.
So it's not, it's an operational matter.
Yep.
It's
not a governance, it's operational.
It's not a governance matter. However, we will go back and we'll get you some advice before the end of the day. Make that promise. Before the end of the day, we'll get some advice around this, so that we can have discussions with staff about the situation. Yeah. I think that it is really important for you to understand that you have established these committees so that they work with staff for the benefit of the reserve. And it is, you know, the new reserve committee has a different membership committee, you know, from the previous ones.
Okay.
Am I able to make a comment on that? Yes. I believe it's a gazetted reserve and it falls under the Reserves Act 1977. Under that act, staff are not able to make decisions on the reserve. They are not the managers. The managers are the community board. I think you really need advice on that. The Local Government Act took that power away from reserve management committees. But now that power has gone up to this committee. So I believe this community board has the power to make policy on the reserve.
So from what Pen's saying that she's aware of, it doesn't appear to be, because this is a governance situation. But what we want to do now is investigate that more and see what we can do as a community board for you in this particular issue. So what I understand staff will do is go away and see what we can do as far as pausing it or getting more information in regards to what the reserve committee and staff have decided on that. So that's what we can do for you.
And
Yes.
sorry, I was just,
Please do.
am I right in thinking that at a governance level, we could instigate policy that wasn't seen as management, but that gave a clear governance directive to the way that reserves are managed?
No.
Okay.
No,
Oh,
because the Reserves Act, the delegations under that sit with staff. Your reserve committees are established under the local government act. All right, so that's the governance line, and the reserve committee, the Reserves Act as well. But it's one of the pieces of legislation that the reserves committees have to work with, and staff obviously work with those all the time. So
So then if we come at it from another angle, then if the role of the committee, the reserve committee, is to manage the reserve with staff, but also to manage the community's needs and expectations, what we've heard loudly this morning, but also through multiple correspondence over the weekend, is that the community have very strong feelings against the proposed spraying. Then is it not our responsibility as a community board to make sure that that's heard very clearly by the committee and by staff, that the community feel, for good reason, that they don't want spraying to happen? So can we then act as a...
So you can pass on, which we will. And the reserve committee is made up of members of the community. So, there's no, the whole community said this, but the reserve committee is doing something different. It's a whole, this is a community decision-making process, isn't it?
That's right.
It's a continuum of beliefs and understandings around this.
And I can't imagine them staff going and trying to pose that decision.
Yeah, that's correct. So the reserve committee are trying what you've elected them to do, what you've appointed them to do is to represent the community. So I think I'm thinking on the spot that there hasn't been enough engagement and communication. Having a letter, when was that received?
On Friday.
On Friday, with something that would start on Monday. And if that doesn't sound like a good process of involvement and engagement. So that to me is the piece that, that needs to be, So we will talk with the staff who are working with the committee and see what they can do.
That's good. And especially just to make sure that the reserve committee has got the same feedback that we have, which I'm sure they do, but just to clarify that, and because that's the thing, is making sure that we're all hearing the same thing to make that, so they can make that decision. Lovely. Thank you, Wendy. Sorry that we can't.
So just really quickly, so would it be reassuring for the concerned residents to put to us that can we ask them to pause it as well? Because, no point them starting and then we're trying to. Because, to be undoing all the great work the community's done. And then what would be the way forward then as the alternative?
I think if we get communication with them today, that will make things clear about whether that is something that is possible even or helpful at the situation. So I think first is just to have that communication with them, and that will be done today so that we're all a bit clear about what the next step is if there is one from the board. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
not amazing, but
it's not perfect, but
yeah, that's what we can do for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you for your time. Really
That's all right.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Don't put it back in the reserve.
What are you going to do with that?
It goes back in my garage. Sorry, I've left a mess.
Oh, that's fine. We can handle that. Thank you again. Appreciate both of your time.
Growing.
Yeah.